Podcaster Joe Rogan slammed Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau for his recent comments that Canadians do not have the right to own a firearm for self-defense. On last Tuesday's episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, Rogan played a clip of Trudeau's appearance on the podcast Pod Save the World, during an interview with his guest and gun rights activist Colion Noir. He said, "You don't have the right in Canada to own a gun to protect your life. It is one of the most wild things I've ever seen anybody say, because first of all, I don't believe it's true," Rogan said on his show. "I don't believe he is correct in terms of what do they have up there? They don't have a constitution. It's not the same, whatever it is." In the podcast clip that aired on June 8, Trudeau said Canadians were only able to obtain firearms for hunting and sports shooting, and that people in his country who want a gun for self-protection do not have that right. "There are debates and we have a culture where the difference is guns can be used for hunting or for sport shooting in Canada. And there's lots of gun owners and they're mostly law-respecting and law-abiding, but you can't use a gun for self-protection in Canada. No, you don't get that," Trudeau said. "That's not a right that you have in the Constitution or anywhere else," Trudeau continued. "If you try and buy a gun and say, it's for self-protection, no, you don't get that. You get it for hunting, you can get it for sport shooting, take it to the range, no problem. As long as you go through our rigorous background checks, but there's a difference around the culture." Rogan said on his show Tuesday that he was so disgusted when he heard Trudeau's comments that he threw his hands up in the air. According to the Canadian Firearms Act, a Canadian citizen is prohibited from obtaining a license to possess a firearm to protect themselves or another person. Under Section 5.1, a person is not eligible to hold a license if it is desirable, in the interests of the safety of that or any other person, that the person not possess a firearm, a crossbow, a prohibited weapon, a restricted weapon, a prohibited device, ammunition or prohibited ammunition. The Prime Minister faced backlash earlier this month over his calls to implement a national freeze on handgun ownership in his country in the wake of the mass shooting in Uvalde, Texas. Critics claimed his new proposed ban will do nothing to protect citizens as many guns are already illegal and the freeze doesn't tackle the root cause of the crime problem, which is gun smuggling. The Canadian government does not have a national firearm tracking system, so it is unclear the exact number of smuggled guns that are from the U.S. However, there are more than 1,500 models and variants of assault-style firearms have been classified as prohibited, Canadian Border Patrol, CBP. Told Day.com in a previous statement, all travelers must declare any firearms in their possession to a CBSA officer when seeking entry to Canada, CBP said. However, the Toronto police reported in 2020 that 85% of handguns taken off the streets were able to be traced back the U.S. In addition, the CBP has seized 955 firearms, both restricted and non-restricted models, across 1,200 entry points so far in the 2021-2022 fiscal year, which ends in September, the agency reported. That's a 57% increase between the 2020-2021 year, where CBP only confiscated 548 firearms. The year prior, it confiscated 753. In the 2018-2019 year, it was 696, and the 2017-2018, it was 751 firearms. Canada banned the sale and use of some 1,500 models of assault weapons, like the AR-15 rifle, 2 years ago. Shortly afterwards, gun supporters marched to Parliament Hill during the Canadian Coalition for Firearm Rights in protest to the ban.